Hello, my name is Melissa Bowling. I am a student at ECU. This is my last semester. This is actually my second semester of internship. I did a split internship, so I'm part-time each semester and I do 16 hours a week. Last semester, I got to do CPS, which is Child Protective Services, and this semester, I am in permanency planning. And then later in the semester, I'll be in foster care, so super excited about that. At DHS in child welfare, there are actually, I like to think of it as an umbrella. There's multiple units. There is permanency planning, CPS, foster care, and adoption. Those are the different areas that we have in child welfare. So you can be a specialist in I'm a permanency planning specialist, or I'm a child welfare CPS specialist. So there's not just one route at DHS. There's a lot of different jobs, maybe not necessarily even under child welfare. There's also, specialists that provide resources to people such as food stamps and helping them locate food pantries, helping them get their electric bills paid, their water bill paid. So a lot of different resources at DHS. But today I'm specifically going to talk about child welfare. And I'm going to start with permanency planning. So permanency planning is a unit in child welfare that serves families. In permanency planning, we assess the needs and the strengths of children and their families, and any other adults obviously closely involved in their lives. And a big thing with permanency planning is we involve the families in the treatment plan with help determining the treatment plan, time frames on the treatment plan. So it's very inclusive. It very much is self-determining for the clients. We like to promote self-efficacy always. So that is a good goal of the DHS and permanency planning, is to make these families more self-efficient, more stable on their own, more confident on their own. And that's something that we do in permanency planning when we're making the treatment plan. We're listening to what the families are saying, what the child is saying, what their needs are. And these can be anything from, getting education for the family, such as parenting classes. We have first-time parenting classes. There's Chubbs, that is like an in-home service. We have drug awareness classes, foster care classes. I just recently set in on a foster care training class for foster parents. It was called Is This Safe? And it was about learning the difference between a safety threat and a risk. So there's always going to be some kind of educational resource available to our clients at DHS and in child welfare. Permanency planning provides placement for children. So we find kinship placement if maybe the child can't stay with bio mom and dad, an aunt and uncle, grandma, grandpa. It can be a cousin. The next step after kinship care would just be traditional foster care, a traditional placement where they're not a relative or a close family friend of the child, so essentially a stranger. So we do try to do kinship care if at all possible. It's a lot less traumatic for the child and easier transition if we keep the child with a family member, someone that they know, someone that they feel safe with. So we try to do that if at all possible. Sometimes it's not doable. Sometimes that you have no one available in a family, or maybe DHS just can't approve them for kinship care. Maybe they don't have a stable, safe home themselves. Maybe there's just several issues that can come into play there. Maybe they're struggling with addiction, and we found them that maybe that's not a good idea. We can't place a child there. So there's a lot of different reasons. We also will do permanent placement if reunification isn't possible. Unfortunately, that sometimes does happen where reunification isn't possible. Reasons for that can be a parent maybe that has been with us goes to jail. Maybe a parent just keeps doing drugs and cannot prove and show and be off of the drugs. So that's another one. And sometimes parents, it's just abandonment. They don't show up to visits. They don't do any of the follow-up. They refuse to work with the treatment plan. They don't want to do any of the steps to reunify. So there's a lot of factors that go into reunification. Foster care is another unit under the child welfare umbrella. Foster care workers are responsible for several different things. Training foster families, so making sure that they are meeting all the requirements, the specifications, having all the qualifications to be a foster family, making sure all the paperwork is turned in for them to be able to foster, and then monitoring placements and providing any support for foster families that they may need. The foster family, does periodic check-ins with their foster care worker, just to, be on the same page. How are things going with the child? Are visits going good with the bio parents? So always staying on the same page, always being available to the foster family as the worker. And then getting them the support that the foster family may need. That can include a lot of different things, material or a referral of service. So if a child maybe is having some medical problems, needs like maybe some medical equipment, medical supplies, we could help with that. We can help with getting diapers, getting wipes, and that also goes for in permanency planning as well. If the child is with the bio family, we can still get diapers, we can get formula, we can get wipes, we can try to locate clothes. There's been times where we can get you hooked up with a bed. We just need to know. So always establishing that good rapport with your client, always having that trust with your client, and ensuring you're asking the right questions, listening to them, and making sure you're just getting everything they need. That's all these things that you learn at DHS under child welfare. Yes, so they do. Foster care specialists also help support reunification of families as well, because ultimately, as stated before, our end goal is reunification. So we don't want the kid to have to live with a stranger or be adopted out or stay in the system permanently if they have that option of going home. So we really try to support that every step of the way, that whether they're in it's the CPS stage, we're at the permanency planning phase, we're in the foster care phase, every step of the way. We want to always root for that. Of course, I think the most well-known unit in child welfare is Child Protective Services, or CPS. That's what it's more commonly referred to as, is just CPS. Most often you hear this in a really negative light and a negative connotation. Some people refer to it as, child snatchers, that CPS, all they do is take your child, and that could just not be farther from the truth. So I truly believe that it is a job that's very misunderstood. I had the opportunity to shadow in CPS last semester, so I found that I had some biases and was holding maybe a stereotypical view of what CPS is and what CPS workers do. So it was really fun to get that behind the scenes look to see what CPS is doing. CPS workers respond to reports of child abuse and/or neglect, sometimes both. So in that process is we get a call from, like, say, a switchboard type of situation. There's specialist workers that just are there to take calls. They then send those down to the specialist, the CPS worker. The CPS worker will read over the report, take the report, and that's when they do their research and their investigation, finding the child, locating the parents. Sometimes it can be quite difficult, but we have resources available to us to kind of assist in finding all those questions that we have. So the CPS worker will interview the child almost always separately. It would be uncommon to not. And then we will interview the adults, anyone living in the home. They don't have to necessarily be related to the child, just anybody living in the home. We will interview, all of them, and there will be collaterals too. So we call people that you, almost like a job reference, that you will give to us to call about your character and how you are as a parent, etc. CPS workers are responsible for determining whether or not a report is factual and if the child is safe, if there is a determining whether or not a safety threat is there. Because I also hear, like, a major concern for people is, what if someone gets mad at me and calls in on CPS and then they come take my child? And I think that is a big misconception with CPS. That's not the way it works. The specialists that take the calls will categorize those into almost like a level. There's a P1 and a P2, and that matters to the CPS specialist, because there's a difference in P1 and P2 on time frames, on how quickly you need to respond to that call. Do you need to respond to it that same day, in the next 12 hours before midnight, or can you respond to that in the next 48 hours? So and that all just depends on the specialist that took the call and the nature of the report and the nature of what's involved in the report, the accusations. Adoption, I don't know a whole lot about adoption. I haven't actually got to be in that unit, in that area, so I'm hoping next semester, or that by the end of the semester, I'll get to learn a lot. A lot that I know about adoption is from just in foster care, learning about foster care. When, say, a foster family has kept a child and they decided they do want to adopt, and adoption is available to them, so maybe reunification with the biological family is not on the table, is not possible. Maybe the rights have been terminated. An adoption worker would step in at that point to take over for the foster care worker to finalize adoption for that family, and be there for them to assist in anything that they needed. So I love child welfare. It's different every single day. I think it's a very misunderstood job. It's definitely not your typical 9 to 5. You know, it would not be not commonplace to have calls after work, or work that goes past 5. Maybe you work till 7 that day. So it's definitely a job that's not for everybody. It is high stress at times. It can be chaotic. I think as a CPS worker, a permanency planning worker, foster care worker, you need to be just on top of organization, on time management. That's a large part of this job, is time management. Anyway, well, that is about all I have. So, thank you. Have a good day.